Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Chris Nelson, but everybody calls me Rotten Deadite. With me today are...
Hi, I'm Corey.
Hey, I'm Joe, and I am not sponsored by Tito's Vodka.
And tonight we're talking about the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, because it's what, 10-year anniversary today. Tonight, today.
Yep.
It came out 10 years ago today. For the Xbox 360 and the PC. And if that doesn't date it, then I don't know what does.
Was that supposed to be a release title for the 360?
Actually, according to this, it came out on the PS3 as well, but that's the first I ever heard of it.
Eventually.
I actually played it on the PS3. I owned it on the PS3 first.
Really? Okay. Did they put the DLC out on the PS3?
Xbox 360 got it. Actually, one of the whole reasons why I bought an Xbox 360 was because the PS3 wasn't getting it for a long time. So I bought that.
They did eventually, though.
Yeah, they did eventually, but I bought that, and then I got all the the Game of the Year edition or whatever.
Wow.
And
those poor bastards had to go a full year without getting their horse DLC.
I know, right?
That armor.
Pretty. Well, DLC-wise, this was actually the first Elder Scrolls game to have DLC. Up until that point, back in my day, you had to go out and buy a disc and put it in a drive and install it. But this was back when, the Oblivion was the first Elder Scrolls game to have downloadable content for purchase. And the horse armor DLC was hilarious and misunderstood.
And infamous.
Yeah, and people still bring that crap up. But Oblivion also had one of the best DLCs money could possibly buy, which would be the Shivering Isles DLC.
Indeed.
And
you said it too fast. I couldn't cut in with like one of the other little random ones. I couldn't go like that fourth thing. You're like the Mage's Tower.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, I forgot all about that.
They were nice, but they were like kind of like Hearthfire, except like
it was sort of
themed.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean,
Shivering Isles and Knights of the Nine were the shit, though.
Yeah, they were. As far as like the Mage's Tower and the Stronghold and the...
There's one other one, right?
Yeah, it's the Dark Brotherhood, not Dark Brotherhood one, where you can cure yourself of vampirism if you want.
Yeah.
But basically, I only ever use that tower to be like, I don't want to join the Mages Guild and be able to do enchanting. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me too.
Yeah. So what changes did we see going from, because everybody knows the first Elder Scrolls game first off. Okay, first off, the first Elder Scrolls game was clearly Morrowind. Okay?
Yes.
There weren't any before that. I don't care what anybody tells you.
Hey man, don't let some of our friends hear that.
Yeah.
Rage about Daggerfall.
Technically, Redguard happened first.
Yeah.
And people like that shit.
That is very true, but Redguard was not an Elder Scrolls game.
Redguard
was an Elder Scrolls adventure.
It was not an Elder Scrolls chapter, which I think the first two were called that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It was an Elder Scrolls adventure, which I think they were kind of... I don't know what the deal was with the Elder Scrolls Adventures subtitle. I don't know if that was because they wanted to make it like lower budget, smaller games or something. I don't know.
Basically, the way I saw it was that in most cases that you took on the role of a a character that you didn't make.
Of course, and it wasn't as stat heavy or role playing as role playing heavy as previous games. That's what it was.
Yeah,
it was like structured like a linear adventure story.
Yeah,
right,
pretty much.
Yeah. So anyway, Morrowind came out, and then Oblivion came out, where Oblivion was announced. Morrowind came out, and then Oblivion was announced, and all the lore nerds threw a goddamn shit fit because Oblivion was taking place in a forest instead of a swamp.
Yep.
Okay. So let's just talk about the change of landscape. To this day, it doesn't get, in my opinion, there's no better example of why lore, like outside of the game or the Elder Scrolls lore community in general, can make something great out of something potentially awful. And of course, I'm talking about Tiber Septim chimming the landscape in a way, but at the same time, another really great thing that came out of it was Lawrence Schick's whole explanation for the way that the people who occupy a tower affect the land around the tower.
Yeah.
And that his suggestion was that the takeover of the White Gold Tower from the aliens is what transformed the landscape into a forest, which meshes really well with the whole myth of, the king is the land, Arthurian kind of mythological metaphor, which is freaking excellent. I mean, that's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. So, and the best part of it is it completely goes against the whole Tiber Septim chimmed the forest into being, which, I mean, the more you have competing concepts in Elder Scrolls lore, the better it gets. I mean, it's just,
indeed.
Everybody knows that.
All cool.
Yeah.
Of
course.
Both of those are cool, so it works.
Yeah, the translation error that was thrown out by ESO briefly was not great.
That was just like, meh.
That was pretty obviously a desperate move.
I don't think it was a desperate move. I honestly think it was an inside joke. I honestly believe they did it on purpose, and they're just fucking with us because it's been done before. No one liked it, and they just thought, "Hey, let's do it again and piss them off."
Yeah.
Let's
These people are
Jimmys.
It's like a corporate level shitpost kind of thing.
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, it's the ZeniMax Online Studios troll face. It's the like I like to tell people, the really hardcore lore nerds are maybe 4 to 10% tops of the people who play Elder Scrolls games, and I think that may or may not be going up with Elder Scrolls Online, considering what a great job Elder Scrolls Online does with showing people really heavy lore.
Yeah, presenting that.
Yeah, and I consider it a
as well as its awesome PvP.
Is the PvP good? I've done it once.
It's good. Really good.
I'm also thinking of like the level of engagement with fans, though, because I've heard people talk about that before. It's like there's a difference between, usually like related to YouTube, like you see like a video with 1 million views, 1 million people aren't super hardcore into that YouTuber. There's like a core of people who watch all their videos and then spread those to other people. And I feel like kind of the hardcore lorebeards are kind of that group to at least like a degree of the fan base. And then there's other people who are into it for like other role-playing purposes that are still engaged, but we're like an engaged fan base that kind of helps to spread the word just by liking it so much.
I know this is off topic, but I just wanted to say about Elder Scrolls Online. ZeniMax Studios has kind of returned to what I would say almost pre-Oblivion levels, like during Morrowind when there's all those lore posts and people, the makers were on the forums and fucking around with everyone. ESO has kind of returned to that, and I like that.
Yeah, it's the frequent where they'll have like in-universe interviews with characters from the universe, and that happens like weekly or something now.
Something like that.
It's
monthly or weekly.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. They're really taking care of their community. I got nothing but good things to say about ESO, which pains me all the more that I don't play it more often than I do, and I really don't.
I don't have the equipment to, so I haven't played it at all. I just like watch all of you guys. Or not you guys, you too, but like you guys, people.
Well, actually, speaking of viewership, if you consider the number of people who have seen, like if you look at the number of views that our videos get, and consider that maybe that's like half, generously speaking, of the hardcore English-speaking lore nerds out there. Like, let's say somehow we've got that good of a penetration into that particular fan page. So like, maybe our Muatra hits 50% of hardcore lore nerds. Then you take a look at the rapid fall off of of how many people actually make it to the end of one of our videos, and I think there's maybe 8 people. It's not that small. But it's incredibly tiny now. It's some like of the number of people who start watching our videos, 15% or so make it to the end.
They just need more stamina. There's exercises for that.
Or we need to wrap it the fuck up. I mean, it's one of those.
Hey, man! I did say when we started these were going to be ramble casts.
Yeah, right.
Just saying.
I'm drinking vodka out of a bottle. All right, you don't know what I'm going to say and what it's going to affect you. Like in what way it's going to affect you.
Anyway, I wanted to return to Ott just because I actually scheduled a day off from my work for this cast because Oblivion is such an important game to me. I kind of wanted to do a cheesy share your memories about Oblivion thing. whether or not you liked it or not, but Oblivion was my first game. Not
First
Morrowind.
Elder Scrolls game.
First Elder Scrolls game, yeah. Not Morrowind, not Daggerfall, not any of the others. It was Oblivion. So when I first got that game, I came into it blind. I mean, I played it at a friend's house, immediately fell in love. It was the game I wanted to play. That kind of block style, the kind of, attacking, the archery, everything. And I became a lore nerd when, I was trying to compare, Dibella to Aphrodite or Akatosh to Jupiter, etc. But I started becoming a lore nerd whenever I started reading the books. And reading about Alessia and Pelennor and Morahas got me into the lore. And then I went back and played Morrowind. So.
And what was that transition like?
Very hard because I played it on the Xbox 360 first.
Oh,
so
no. Yeah.
crashed constantly. I played hardly any of it, but then I got into the computer one and I made myself play it. And as a game to play, I honestly think I prefer Morrowind, which is kind of weird, just because of the freedom that is involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
But Oblivion is where all my, rose-tinted glasses nostalgia is.
Sure.
I mean, I love that game.
It's the transition from Morrowind to Oblivion was actually something that actually stuck on a lot of people who were really big Morrowind fans because they liked the strangeness of it, the alien landscape, and then they go to Oblivion and they were complaining that it's high fantasy all over. It's high fantasy. It's nothing like Morrowind, when in fact the series started at high fantasy. I mean, that's really
it was a high fantasy D&D Tolkien-esque adventure, which it returned to that in Oblivion. And really, you didn't get. Unfortunately, you didn't get into any of the weird lore until you get to Gaia Lauter, which.
Yeah.
By the way, that Mankar Cameron's still my favorite
bad
enemy,
guy.
bad guy in the Elder Scrolls series.
And the funny thing is, he wasn't even technically the bad guy. Technically,
I know, but he was
just the front man. He was a bad guy. He was a front man for the big bad guy. But you only see the big bad guy at the very, very end of the game, whereas Mankar is in and out for most of it.
Now, who do you remember more, Darth Vader or the Emperor?
That's right. Yeah. Excellent point. Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, Mehrunes Dagon is just there, and Mankar Cameron's the big baddie orchestrating all of this. That's how I felt when I played it.
Mehrunes Dagon is the big nuclear bomb, and Mankar Cameron is the madman with the button. It's and the other thing is that Mankar Cameron was easier to identify with because he wasn't a big friggin' Daedric god and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why ESO. I mean, you fight Molag Bal all the time. You constantly hear him in ESO, but when you start thinking about like whose guts do you really hate? It's not really. I mean, you could say it's more Molag Bal than Dagon was in Oblivion, but I mean, it's still kind of hard to hate on a guy who's.
Especially when Minimarco is such a bitch,
Yeah. God. Mm-hmm.
Another thing, this might be like really reaching for stuff, but I got the like special edition like day one release thing that had like the making of DVD, and like whatever you think their execution of stuff was, like Todd was saying in the DVD, like he didn't want, or they as a company didn't want Mankar to be just like he's like the standard Dark Lord or like the lunatic. Like they wanted him to have a point. Like even if that point may not have been necessarily right, or if you as a player didn't agree with it, which is kind of more in the Elder Scrolls vein of subjectivity, it's like he still had to actually have like reasons that were legitimate within the context of how he saw the world.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, Mankar Cameron's had such an effect on me that Lorcan being the king of the Daedra, as it's headcanon for me. Nothing. I don't think there's anything that can persuade me to change it at this point.
As much time as I spend dwelling on metaphysics in the Elder Scrolls, Mankar Cameron's version of the story makes so much sense that it's there's Ziegler.
Yay!
We got more. Awesome.
Hello,
Yeah.
friends.
Hey. So we were just talking about the first those of us who played Oblivion for the first time, what that experience was like. What was your first impression, Ziegler?
So the one that really counts, because we had a dickens of a time in the sewers and in that first dungeon. I played it. This is before I had an Xbox 360, so I went up to my brother-in-law's place and we took turns playing. So we come out of the dungeon, and the two of us just stood there in awe, staring at that first scene. And we're like, what are we going to do? And I said, you see that mountain up there? I can't remember which mountain it was. I said, I'm going to climb that mountain. And I went. And
No way.
Yes.
Living God's dream.
I completely ignored the main quest. Then eventually, when I got my own 360, then I got involved and did the main quest and whatnot. But mostly, I just ran around and did dungeons and it was glorious.
That's actually that's an interesting question. How often do you guys actually, of the Elder Scrolls games that you've completed, how late in your character's development do you actually complete the main quest?
So, for me, with Morrowind, I do it immediately, because that ring that gives you stamina over time, too good.
Mm-hmm.
Also, those 2 gauntlets that you get that raises your strength and whatever.
Love those.
Yeah, it's from that Nord hero.
Fist of Rodagulf.
Yeah.
I think that's how you say it.
Oblivion-wise, if I ever do any quests at all when I'm playing it, I'll be lucky. Skyrim, I'll never.
Really?
Yeah, really.
You just pick flowers in Oblivion all day? Is it what do you do?
Pretty much. I run around and I put it on the hardest difficulty, and which is you can get 3-shot, and I run around and I do dungeons. I don't know why, but I do.
I hunt vampires. It's good.
Oh yeah, that's a fun quest.
Yes. Ooh, they hit like trucks in Oblivion, vampires.
Yes.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Oblivion, I usually play Vampire, but it's the only game I do it. But normally, with Morrowind, I play the main quest last before the expansions, and then I just do the expansions. Then Oblivion, I do just Kvatch to get the Oblivion gates to start opening, then do everything else I want to do on that playthrough, then the main quest. Then for Skyrim, it's kind of the same as Morrowind, where I do, or it's kind of a halfway between the two. I get dragons to start spawning, then I do everything else in Skyrim proper, Skyrim main quest, then Dawnguard, and then Dragonborn to end it, because Solstheim is like my nostalgia point for the series as a whole.
I would highly recommend starting a new character and doing Dragonborn as soon as possible, because
it's really cool.
You get very different enemies at lower levels than you do at high levels, and it's the same enemies, but you get them in different amounts and they do different things. It's not like that's one of the reasons why I've every once in a while I'll go back and play Skyrim again and try to do the main quest as quickly as possible, because I saved it till the very end on all my previous playthroughs. Yeah. And I never get much farther than learning the full Fus Roda, and then after that, if for some reason or other just something happens and I don't get to finish it.
Also, the dialogue that you get before killing Alduin is really, really cool.
Have you done Dragonborn already, or?
Yeah. The dialogue you get when you're talking to whose name I cannot remember. The original Dragonborn.
Oh, Mirak.
Mirak, yeah.
He gets dialogue that's specific to finishing the Skyrim main quest, because he's talking about Alduin and all this stuff, but I haven't heard any dialogue like the dialogue that he would say if you haven't already done that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Okay. I got a playthrough going right now. I might just head in there.
Just finished one, and so it'll be a bit before I do it again. But my Oblivion thing, I actually haven't done mine yet. I think with me the big thing for Oblivion was actually almost before it came out, was kind of my first introduction to the community, because I first looked up, this was my early days of using the internet regularly, was I looked it up because my friend brought a magazine to school back, you guys might remember, listeners at home, you might remember there were these things called magazines once, and they were paper.
Game Informer?
They had it was that one, and they had stuff in them. and there was a story about a new Elder Scrolls game in it. So I just used this fancy internet search thing that I was using at the time.
Ask
And
Jeeves.
I don't know if it was Ask Jeeves, but it wasn't Google.
Hotbot.
So I don't even remember what it was. But and then I found just the official Elder Scrolls website and joined that. So that was my first introduction to like, oh, you can find people on the internet who like the same things you do and talk to them about that. So like, technically the announcement of Oblivion is kind of what, it didn't make me like a lore nerd, but it made me able to share that. And then as for the game itself, it was like that first playthrough, like before I started getting really analytical, because the first playthrough was as soon as it came out. So like between when, like before like Knights of the Nine, which is kind of my favorite part of it, came out.
Oh yeah.
And like when I started, I still wasn't being that analytical about it, so I wasn't kind of like noting the things that were inconsistent with my preconceived notions as much, although I kind of started to do that later. And it was just like, oh wow, this is like really cool just seeing another part of Tamriel firsthand. And like, you know, it was also just like pretty, and there are so many points that you just like, that I would just stop and stand and just look around, because it was like, it was new tech and everything, so it looked a lot prettier than anything I had seen in a video game before.
Yes.
Yeah, Oblivion when it first came out was a gorgeous game. It really was.
Yeah.
They were still messing around with the whole make trees out of sprites. You know, and the LOD was particularly well done in Oblivion. It was. I remember being able to climb up on top of a mountain and look over the whole basin, and just be like, man, I can see everything from up here.
That has aged well.
Say again?
That has aged well. Like just viewing like vistas and stuff.
Yeah.
Like even though it's 10 years old, like just looking out over the distance and just like taking in Cyrodiil still looks really pretty.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's. I mean, people are still every week or so. There's at least one post on the front page of Reddit with like some screenshots some dude took of his ridiculous, Skyrim install. I mean, all the games are just have these amazing landscapes and, free karma. Yeah.
Indeed.
Provided you can run some ridiculous ass ENB at some ridiculous screen resolution. So we've already talked about Mankar Cameron quite a bit.
Why not some more?
Well, we even gave him his own cast. But what we haven't really discussed much, we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about Knights of the Nine, I don't think.
No, we haven't.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this was the expansion. This was an adventure that they gave us, which involved an ancient Iliad elf spirit coming back to life, and by the name of Umaril the Unfeathered. And I mean, I think we've mentioned Iliads in the past and what they were doing in Cyrodiil, but the changeover from Iliad domination to the freedom of man was due partially to the efforts almost entirely to the efforts, of Saint Alessia and her two champions.
Yeah, semi-divine champions.
Yeah. One of whom was apparently a gay robot assassin from the future.
Yes, we said the gay robot thing.
Who used a lightsaber.
Who had a lightsaber or something. That's right. So let's talk first a little bit about who Umaril the Unfeathered was.
That's a hard question. So, because so you guys know, the Iliads are my favorite Merithic race. Not the Dwemer. Of all the lost races, it's the Iliads that are my favorite. And as far as I can gather, that the Iliads were almost the joined together in a league of sorts, kind of like the ancient Greeks. They each had a city-state. Each city-state had a high priest king or just a king. And then, there's this imperial city or Al-Sarad that comes about, and then there's Umral the Unfeathered. So, as far as I can understand, Umral the Unfeathered was kind of like the Daedrophile High King of Cyrodiil. And that's how, kind of like the son of Meridia. That's how I see him.
Well, his mother was apparently Iliad, his father was a divine being of some kind. But he had an alliance with Meridia, I'm reading here on UESP.
Yeah, alliance or son or something like that.
If I recall right, I think like it was through her that he was able to sort of escape after his physical death the first time.
Yes.
Due to some kind of pact with Meridia, but I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if they go into too much more detail than that, or if they do, what that is.
Well, why do you think Meridia would have anything to do with the Iliads in the first place?
Well, she is the literal personification of light, and light is sacred to the Iliads because light is the source of all magic, and blah, 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 blah.
So, presumably, according to this, he was a sorcerer king, so I assume he was... Basically, I assume his pact was in some way yes, hello. Is it kissy time? What?
Yay!
What are we doing? What are we doing?
I have more views than any other video.
It's kissy time. Oh my god.
Just because of the dog. That's how this works.
Just takes one dashy. Yes. One dashy for all the hits.
But yeah. And I can't remember exactly where the story may have been, but I seem to recall that he had, Unfeathered is actually an earned name, because, I seem to recall at one point did have, wings that were majestic and then lost them somehow.
It kind of sort of has something going on in his armor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also like to remind you guys of the Mur that occupied Al-Sarad when Topol the pilot showed up. Basically, bird people. And then the Iliads, their obsession with the sky and light and all things looking like birds and/or, Ariel. And then I don't really remember why he was called the Unfeathered, but I know it's related to that.
Yeah,
I believe.
I got Imperial Library open. I'm just looking up Song of Pelennor. So, yeah. I'm just trying to see if it's in this one specifically. Oh, yep, here we go. Found it. Volume 7. Umaril was laid low, the angel face of his helm dented into an ugliness which made Pelennor laugh, and his unfeathered wings broken off with sword strokes delivered while Pelennor stood frothing above him, insulting his ancestry and anyone else that took ship from old Elnifey, which angered the other Elvish kings and drove them to a madness of their own.
I love that character so much.
Just I'm just gonna shit talk on you while I fuck your face up.
He's unfeathered because Pelennor shit talked him. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is so much funnier, after a few
Better
years.
than what I said.
Right. That's great. You could just see him just squatting over Pelennor. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
wreck nerd.
Yeah, but to kind of filter back to the whole pre-analyzing thing. Knights of the Nine was actually the thing that really kicked Oblivion up a few notches for me, because I was I liked it, but I'm this is a good game in a series of great games, and I'm so even though it's really good, it's the point of comparison was a little skewed.
There's not nearly as much content in base Oblivion as there was in base Morrowind.
In base Oblivion, and it's a very different kind. But then Knights of the Nine comes in, and it's kind of got the same sort of tone, where it's very mythic, but it's still got that kind of black comedy that you find in mythologies. So it was really Knights of the Nine and stuff like the Song of Pelennor that was okay, now this feels right. now Oblivion has sort of come into its own, and it feels like more of like the Elder Scrolls that I was thinking I would be getting. And so now that I have that, and I have like the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC and expansions on it, I'm like, okay, yes, as a whole, like the point that it reached before they stopped working on it, or the point that it reached when they were done with it, like that's like, okay, that's the Oblivion that I was expecting when I first bought it, and it's reached that now pretty much. But it's like it took a bit of extra time that I think like nowadays, because that's just the way video games are released now, I sort of expect it to get better over time. But at the time, it's like, oh, I just bought this game, and like I expect it to sort of stay as it is. Yeah.
I just realized UESP has Umaril's dialogue.
Oh, cool.
Oh, does it? Yeah, because he just shouts stuff at you but it's like in like their own language. Yeah.
My favorite line is, Pelennel's reach is long.
Well, you know what? They had to cut Large beneath himself.
That's true.
That's probably my favorite cut line from anything. It's just the Large beneath himself line.
Well, there's a lot of the Rimanata that is pretty memorable. That they cut.
Well, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
And there's Johnnyetta, which I still haven't seen because I don't know I don't know the status of these things, and I don't ask. I'll just let them come as they come.
It's pretty messed up.
Like the bits I've seen, I'm like, holy shit! He just came on that guy's face and ate him.
Why? I can't imagine why that wasn't in a game.
Yeah, but like they got some weird shit into the Morrowind books anyway. Like 36 Lessons we talk about all the time. It's like they gotta slip some of that into like just the in-game books.
I'm surprised Vivek in general even got into a video game, but
I love that he did.
I'm glad he did, because he's probably one of the most memorable characters ever of all time, as far as RPGs, especially as important as Morrowind was to the console market for bringing RPGs to the console.
It's true. A lot of people weren't really playing role-playing games like we know them until Morrowind came out, which is one of the things that a lot of people who played Oblivion on the console were very excited by, that Oblivion was more of a, let's face it, it was less dice-rolly and a lot more action-oriented than Oblivion was. And to this day, it's still I love Morrowind, but the combat is just a chore.
Yeah,
so
it is a chore, yeah.
It's nice to have a more interactivity, or voluntary choice as to whether or not my character can be arsed to lift a shield.
Yeah. Honestly, just as a side note, if I really liked Skyrim's combat, and that was about all I liked about Skyrim, I'm afraid to say. Other than the game was beautiful. And this is coming from someone who played, I have thousands of hours in the game. On the console version, guys.
Yeah, okay. So you hated it. Yeah.
I hated it.
Right.
It's all that skewed point of comparison that the Elder Scrolls does.
Yeah.
Right.
But basically,
so it sucks.
The closer Elder Scrolls combat gets to Dark Souls 1's combat, the happier I am.
Now
so
we're talking,
so
brother.
you like dying, then, is that it?
No, I'm just talking about, so I like there to be a challenge to gameplay, and I like there being risk and reward. And there was risk and reward in Morrowind in the way that you had to specialize yourself.
Yeah.
In Oblivion, not so much. You were a stealth archer, and you could just murder everything. Or,
Mm-hmm.
If you're the scaling definitely needed some work.
If you're a mage,
archery in Dark Souls, it's not going to work.
No, and again, innovation. I'd like there to be innovation, but in Oblivion, if you're a mage, you just cast the reflect and absorb spells, and you can never die.
Mm-hmm.
And then melee was great because it was block and attack, but at the same time, it's just like, why when I could just stealth archer your face?
Yep. It was. I mean, as bad as stealth archery is in Oblivion, It's thankfully not nearly as overpowered in Skyrim.
Actually, it is.
But it's still desperately skewed.
It's also really fun, or became really fun. Speaking of games improving after launch nowadays, it became really fun when they, like in a weird sort of way, when they added the kill cams to bows.
Oh yeah.
Because then it's like you're just sneaking around a cave and you're like, oh, well, there's that guy. I'm just gonna hit him with an arrow, and then he's gonna go over that fence and fall into this big ass lake. Then you do that, but then it does the slow mo, and it's like it's gonna follow his ass into the lake.
It is epic.
It is. It's like it's meaty and it feels good. In like a kind of a venting, like tough day, playing video games after a tough day kind of way.
Yeah.
Like Oblivion had a little bit more of a mellow way of relaxing me after a tough day, because it was like, because Skyrim's got like, I love it, but it's got this like rough edge, like the rough edged kind of feel to it, like everything's kind of harsh and makeshift, which they were kind of going for. Whereas Oblivion, it's like, I'm gonna walk through this meadow. It's gonna be nice. I'll wreck those.
Yeah.
I have to wreck those 2 minotaurs to make it nice, but I could do that. Whatever.
Fine.
And
then after you're done, you've got a lovely lake to look over, and
it's pretty.
the grass is playing. You're completely correct. Yeah, it's a relaxing game. The
Yeah.
landscape.
And the soundtrack is kind of along the same vein, where it's very like kind of light and airy. It's like whereas Skyrim is a lot more kind of like it's a lot more
Well, if you
Viking. And
yeah, it's
like,
Viking and drums, and then I feel like Oblivion soundtrack was an ode to the past, an ode to time before, almost. Because my favorite song from that game, which I always get the name of it wrong, it's like Ariel's Rising.
I'm not sure the names of the songs except for I think one, and it's in Skyrim, and it's very telling that it's my favorite song in Skyrim. It's Wind Guide You, which is actually a remix of a song from Oblivion. So
Really?
let that speak for itself. Like even though me, just because of my like personality and the way that I engage in fiction, I like Skyrim better. But in terms of just walking around exploring and just relaxing instead of walking around exploring and adventuring, it's like Oblivion's got that lockdown of just like being pretty and just having great things to look at, just pretty much wherever you turn.
Now I have to say two things about this. One is that I actually feel that Skyrim is much more relaxing. I will go up on the northern coast where it is just like normally you go there to die because it's so cold.
Yeah, that's like the brutal place. You either go there to die or it's like where you test yourself kind of thing.
And I'm like, I want to live there. Can I build a hut? And so the Skyrim Atmospheres music comes on, and like if I've had a bad day at work, that is where I go to relax. Now, don't hate me, but I probably had at least 1,000 hours into Oblivion. I played that game like crazy, but that also means that there came a point where I needed a new soundtrack. And so what I would do is I would play Opeth while I was playing Oblivion. I will never, ever, every time I think of the Shivering Isles, I imagine going through Mania and listening to Damnation by Opeth.
No, right. Shivering Isles makes a bit more sense with Opeth, because I was like thinking like, all right, like, because I was actually thinking like, okay, Opeth and like Morrowind or Opeth and Skyrim, I could see a bit more. Opeth and Oblivion, it's so idyllic, but then it's like Shivering Isles. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But Damnation is they're like, it's not an acoustic album, but it ultimately is very much like that. It's very calm compared to their other stuff. No, for Morrowind, it was Awaken the Guardian by Fate's Warning, which I would listen to all the time, and it's an amazing album for an amazing game.
And I'll listen to the Morrowind Explore tracks just constantly if I had the chance. But that's because my nostalgia triggers are all sound-based.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. I'm very rarely like nostalgic over something that I see, but then if you play a song, even if it's like a shitty little song from just like some show I watched when I was a kid, I'll be like, oh yeah, those days.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like that with Morrowind. It's like Morrowind is what got me into a lot of the stuff that I'm into now. So it's like I hear like Blessing of Vivek and I'm like, y'all, or Caprice.
Right.
But then like at the same time though, it's not necessarily my go-to relaxation music. I can definitely see why you would need a new soundtrack after a while, because like I bought the Skyrim soundtrack and it's 4 discs, versus like the Oblivion soundtrack.
Or even the Morrowind
Like the Explore tracks. Yeah, the Morrowind soundtrack, I think there's like 8 or so Explore tracks, and Oblivion, I think there's like 9. I could have those numbers completely wrong. But, you know, there's not a lot, whereas there's like 3 or 4 hours of just Explore tracks, not including Skyrim Atmospheres, which is its own track that gets its own for like 45 minutes, which is great.
45 minutes.
Yeah, they're just like nature sounds and like light background instruments.
Well, I guess I wanted to ask you guys, because I kind of wanted to talk about it. It's been 10 years since Oblivion. It's been many years since Morrowind. 14, I guess.
Oh God, where is this going?
And it's approaching 4 years since Skyrim. So, playing all those games, thinking about right now, what do you want to see in the next Elder Scrolls game, and what don't you want to see?
Bring back murder penises.
Okay, I'm gonna back you up there.
I tried to keep a straight face and I couldn't do it after I said it. I had no idea where you were gonna go with that question. I thought you were gonna ask some existential shit about where we've all become as people, and was really nervous about it. And then you did that, and I'm just like, dick joke.
No, I'm not gonna ask where we came as people.
Oh, man.
But
Yeah, I've come in some weird places. But yeah.
Oh, well then.
Like in the back of a VW bug.
I bring the comedy somewhere. I don't know where I bring it, but okay. But no, as an honest answer, murder penis. But I'd also like, and apparently ESO is doing a good job of this, like multiple interpretations of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
oh wait, did you mean spears? Is that what you meant?
You know, either or. Take, you know, like I said,
spears.
multiple interpretations. Take from it what you will. But yeah, like a lot more, like just a lot of stuff where as I'm playing the game, I sort of need to engage like my own ability to make decisions. Like they had a little bit of that, in Skyrim, and not necessarily very much in quests. Like they had the In My Time of Need quest, which is the one where like you don't get a definitive answer, and it's like, oh, is she the traitor? Is he the traitor? Like, and you don't know, and you sort of have to piece it together yourself and make your own decision. I like stuff like that, and I feel like if they want to go with the like Thalmor politics angle, they'd have a lot of opportunities to do it wherever they decide to set the game. But like, yeah, like politics, and I kind of like the religious element of the Civil War quest line, but I feel like it wasn't, like it was addressed, but it wasn't a central enough issue in terms of stuff that you did.
Yeah, until you pull out the stuff that they didn't put in the game, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's like, it's stuff like that. Like some of it, like I've heard some of the stories that it would have been like impossible to implement that sort of thing, like the exploding head shit. But
oh yeah, with the symbol of
the red diamond thing,
Imperial Diamond,
that would have been really cool. But I could see why it wasn't in there. But yeah, just like more religious stuff, more political stuff, and more kind of leave the interpretation up to the player rather than wrapping up a story with a bow. And I can understand why that would be hard to do, especially like for a mass audience. But you know, if we can hope.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, they did a very good job of not making the Stormcloaks or the Imperials be clearly the bad guy or the good guy, and they did a very good job of leaving it up to the player as to whether or not you want to kill Parthenax or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, I mean, but unfortunately, the worst thing. I mean, I liked the fact that they gave you the choice, and I almost like the fact that they don't really give you a consequence for killing Parthenax.
Well, they also don't give you a resolution if you choose not to. Like, that was kind of my big criticism of that.
Right.
Was that
that's
you can't
the only
just go
problem
like,
that I really have with it.
Fuck off, I'm the Dragonborn. I am a god to you. Do as I say. Like, I would have loved... Apparently somebody modded that in, though.
Oh,
like,
good.
somebody modded in where you can do that. And, like... But still, like, I would have loved to have seen something like that. Like...
Oh, yeah, when Delphine gives you lip. Yeah.
She gives you lip, and you're like, I am your god. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'd actually like to see, if I may interrupt. So if you know how in Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and to a little extent Fallout 4, you have speech abilities. So you can be like, if my speech is so high, I can make them say something different, or I want that, almost Daggerfall-ish, where I run a character class, if you will, through a game. So I have playthroughs where I can play through as a mage, and that's going to be significantly different from an archer or a warrior or a conjurer or some shit. I'd like to see that again.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they decided to despecialize or to allow you to despecialize, but I think it has something to do with the fact that they may have realized that not many people play through their games more than once. I mean, if you give somebody,
Really?
100, yeah,
It
not many
filters
people.
back to the engaged
Again,
fan base thing.
Again, extremely small percentage. Yeah, so like most people are going to play. I mean, I have people at work would tell me, "Man, I love Skyrim. Must play that game for like 30, 40 hours," and I'm just like, "Okay, great, get the fuck in my face, noob." And because I work with casuals, and apparently that's like the sweet spot for a game that somebody's willing to play through once but never again. If you hit like a 50-hour, like most consumers will apparently hit 50 hours, and then if you give them the option to play again, they're like, nah, no, that's okay. I mean, especially if you can entice them with things like New Game Plus, and you can entice them with things like co-op or some other system altering thing that you can do. New Game Plus is the only thing that really comes to mind. But but if you're just saying, well, hey, make a new character and play through it again, then if your game is 50 hours long or so, then it's not likely to happen. Apparently, if you want like a high replay value, or if you want replay value for your game and you want people to actually play it more than once, apparently it's supposed to be something like 8 to 16 hours is your sweet spot. But if it's any longer than that, people aren't going to play it.
I don't know. I work at a large box store, and people are still coming in buying Skyrim and being like, "Oh yeah, this game's great, man," shit like that.
I don't know where the man came from, but okay. But I think as an adult, it's also different. Like as the median math word age for like who is like the main demographic of gamers.
Yeah.
It's like if you're like, I'm 26 now. I was like 14 when I first bought Morrowind. I'll replay Morrowind because I love it, and I'll replay the rest of the Elder Scrolls games, but a game has to be like in my list of favorites for me to play it more than once, especially if it's a really long one.
I understand,
so,
yeah.
I think it might have to do with that a lot too. Like if the primary age for people who played video games was still like, younger, then because they don't have necessarily as many responsibilities, they might have the time to replay a long game more. But I mean, that's just me guessing. I'm not like a child psychologist or anything.
So, Michael, Chris, got anything that you'd like Bethesda to learn from these 10 years of Oblivion?
I have things that I'd like them to learn from Shivering Isles.
Sure.
Which is I really, really enjoy crazy-ass landscape.
Yeah.
And they tried to kind of bring it back a little bit in Skyrim. Skyrim's got some very, like you guys have correctly pointed out, I think that Skyrim's visuals are very tough and dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, even I would go so far as to say that probably the most relaxing part of Skyrim for me would be the Reach, and it's because I got a kind of a thing for those cherry trees and stuff. But even the Reach is still really harsh. There's a lot of rock. There's a lot of sheer cliff. There's a lot of
it's
crap happening. I mean, it's really
a lot of people in deerskin trying to stab you.
It looks like
they got no armor rating. I can't take a hit. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Briar
So it's
Hearts
like
that you gotta watch out for. Those guys are.
Like the Minotaurs again. Oh, it's pretty. I just got to clear this out a little first.
I just got to wipe out a couple of netches and some friggin' whatever, and then the city is mine. No, the problem with the Reachmen, it's the Briar Hearts that those guys are rough. But other than that, they start planking at me with those dumbass arrows, and I just giggle and shoot. But with the with Oblivion, it was definitely very relaxing and very peaceful, and you could just stand there on the road and listen to the wind whistle through the trees, and it was amazing. And then you would go to Shivering Isles, and the giant contrast in terrain was arresting. I mean, it was apples and oranges. It was not even that. It was apples and carburetors. It was completely different. And that's what I really enjoyed about Shivering Isles, was walking out of idyllic landscape and into Alice in Wonderland's rotting corpse. It was really strange and awful, and that was great. I mean, I don't think I remember any scene nearly as clearly from Oblivion, except for maybe, like you guys said, walking out of the sewers for the first time and seeing that alien ruin ahead of me and going, "That looks like a safe place to visit." But other than that, it would have been when Haskell's Haskell's like, "All right, good luck, have fun," and then the butterflies take the room away, and I'm just like, "That's the greatest shit I've ever seen."
Yeah.
And I mean, that was phenomenal.
This feels like Elder Scrolls moment.
I agree.
After release, it.
Okay, yeah. Oh, they figured it out after the game came out. Okay, I see. Oblivion was just the test, and now the real Dark Souls begins. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. That's I do kind of sometimes I do hope that if I can jump back to Dark Souls again, like I always do. If I would like to think that Bethesda could learn something from Dark Souls as far as combat goes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just don't think that's likely. I think Elder Scrolls games have to hit a much wider audience than Dark Souls does. And unless Dark Souls 3 sells just way the fuck more than it's going to, I don't think it's even going to be on Todd Howard's radar as far as like maybe we should try this system of balance.
Well, ultimately, combat-wise, what I'd like to see is fatigue or stamina or whatever used as a resource. When you make a swing, you lose a little bit.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Then
Instead
it
of just
regenerates.
Power attacks. Yeah.
I really haven't thought about stamina since Morrowind, if I'm being honest.
Exactly. Like stamina has come kind of useless, except in Skyrim when you're sprinting. That's all you use it for.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I remember my first character in Skyrim, I leveled my stamina up to the point where I was like, the only thing I want to be able to do is run from Breezeholm to the entrance of the castle.
Yeah,
and like and when I was able to make that distance and I had enough stamina to make the distance, I was like, well, I'm not putting any more points into that.
Well, you take the steed, so you can run in heavy armor real easy, and then what I would do is, depending if I was playing a melee character, I just put all my stuff into stamina. I do 5 stamina, 1 HP, 5 stamina, 1 HP. So I just run at your face and kill you.
Yeah, you're one of those guys who plays Dark Souls and just has a giant stamina bar and no health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in the words of Piccolo, dodge!
Yeah! I'm too bad at video games to play Dark Souls, so some of the gameplay mechanics stuff is going over my head, but
I've seen it. That's what I do. I would like to see shield and a rapier, and I just hide.
I've heard it exhaustively analyzed, but I've never actually played through it. So I sort of I at least understand what you guys are getting at with like the balance is very, like it's kind of the knife's edge between like hard enough to be punishing, but not so hard to be frustrating.
Yeah, hard but fair is what you're looking for.
I could see why like a mass market game series like Elder Scrolls. Wow, that's weird to say still. Kind of. I came into it with Morrowind. It wasn't a mass market thing at the time.
I'm with you.
It's, but it's still like I'm proud of them, but it's still weird to say. But it's like I could see why that might not fly as much though, because it is like, especially because combat isn't the only thing you do.
Right.
Like if it was focused on combat, like if it was more of an action game than an exploration game.
It's an exploration game, but combat is...
It is combat focused. It's definitely a part of it.
And I just want to see combat fleshed out in a way where you have to make choices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be, because how Magicka is that you have so much Magicka, you can only use so many spells with your Magicka.
Yeah.
I want to see stamina or fatigue become a resource.
Yeah. I could see at least using it as a severe, like if it ran out and your attack took like a severe hit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also want to see dodging, not dodge rolling. I want to physically see.
Like get the fuck out of the way style of thing. Yeah.
I can sidestep, and I want my enemies to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
It's notoriously difficult to do that in first person.
It is, yes.
That's one of the reasons why you don't have dodge rolling and dodging in general in Skyrim or any Elder Scrolls game, is because in first person it's
dodge rolling in Morrowind, or not Morrowind, Oblivion. It's just
dodge roll. You get your agility so high, you go into snake mode and you can roll around, and it was hilariously fun and useless, but it was fun.
If you did it in third person, it looked so ridiculous to see a dude in like full Daedric armor just do a backflip. It's like, what do I do?
Another thing
on the streets of Chiddington, like, what up, motherfuckers?
Another thing I'd like to see them add is I want the return of birth signs, but I want it returned differently. I want you to be able to put perks into your birth sign. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an Atronach, for instance, it'll play different than the steed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want there to be perk points into your race. Okay?
Right.
So
you're definitely straying more towards the specialized instead of the general.
There was attribute differences in Morrowind and Oblivion, but I think it feels like it's cosmetic in Skyrim more than anything else.
It is.
But yeah, there were definitely, like, granted, by the time you'd gone up a few levels, it didn't matter anymore, but there was definitely stat differences for different races. Like, I remember it especially in Morrowind because it had such an immediate effect. Like, if you didn't have enough strength and you tried to swing a sword at a dude, you just would miss repeatedly.
Yeah.
So it's like,
if
you wanted to play a warrior, if you wanted to play a warrior character as a race that wasn't like naturally inclined to that,
you picked Redguard.
Well, I picked Nord, but
boo, Redguard master race.
Look at my hair. Look at my fucking hair. I got the fucking going.
This is actually going to be interesting to go when the next Elder Scrolls game comes out. I think it's probably a very safe bet to say that that like Fallout 4, their construction kit is going to be console compatible. And it'll be interesting because a lot of the people while it is certainly true that a large percentage of Dark Souls fans are PC gamers, the series started on consoles, and I think console gamers are a little bit more predisposed to a third-person control system than PC gamers are. I might be talking out of my ass there, but it sounds reasonable to say
experience, kind of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so because of the first person becoming so famous with Halo and Call of Duty 2.
Well, but I'm thinking about melee stuff here. First-person shooters, definitely, but
like if you're thinking more of a sword and sorcery game, then I would say kinda. Like I play pretty much exclusively on console, but again, like Elder Scrolls experience skewed things a little.
But if you're talking about sword and sorcery, I would agree.
Yeah, I'm used to personally doing more Elder Scrolls than anything else, and I play it in first person. But there's stuff like I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I'm seeing things like Dragon Age, Fable, Zelda. It's like that's all third person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I actually played Oblivion a lot in third person when I first started playing it. Yeah. I actually did that So when Skyrim added that kind of really nice over-the-shoulder camera, I really liked that because I actually liked seeing my character.
The third-person view wasn't much in Oblivion, but
it was third-person view, and you had to really try to be able to aim.
It was first-person that skewed back from where your actual center was.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was first-person with a picture of you in the way, kind of. And it felt that way in Morrowind too, but like it didn't affect me much because again, like the way I play Elder Scrolls is like get as immersed as possible style of thing. So it's like it kind of fits to be in first-person. But at the same time, it's like I feel like a third-person option that was a little bit more viable would also be pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping that we get is some really like well thought out mods, balance mods, and combat mods for the next Elder Scrolls game that are made by fans for Dark Souls style gameplay. I think that's definitely something that's an achievable goal. They've already got a lot of Dark Souls-inspired gameplay mods for Skyrim. It's just because of the nature of the way the animation works and the way the third-person camera works, it doesn't really... You can't quite hit that spot.
So I wanted to say that there's two things I really want to see in Elder Scrolls 6. One is the obvious thing where you have all the different crafting stuff and like be a farmer if you want to that's in Skyrim, because I think that's great for RP. But the other thing is something that's been a part of Elder Scrolls. It really became aware of it in Oblivion, and that's the here's a story, but we're not going to tell you it's a story. It's almost exactly like it is in Dark Souls. You know, when I'm walking around Skyrim and I see this house on fire, I walk in and here's the guy who is dead, and in his hand is a scroll of Summon Flame Atronach, and I'm like, oh, you did not know what you were doing. Mm-hmm. Or if you go in Shivering Isles and you spend a lot of time underground, you find these books that start to talk about maybe the Shivering Isles is all connected and these roots are like the actual mind of the realm and all this kind of crazy stuff. But you'd never find it unless you spent all the time down there. I love that. I mean, and Dark Souls does that fantastically, and I would love to see more of that.
There's go ahead.
Bethesda does that overall. I was actually at a panel called "Video Games Make You a Better Writer."
Nice.
And it was great because this one writer was talking about. Actually, he used Fallout 3 as one of his favorite examples because there's if you find a dried out lake bed, there's like houses around the rim of it. If you go up, you find a skeleton just sitting in a chair on the dock with a couple of empty beer bottles. And it's like just that moment of like, okay, well, we know what he decided to do with his last moments. And it's like, it's just these powerful moments that they don't have to spend time and money on writing a script and on finding talent and like doing all these like, you know, these chains of like cause and effect. It's just like, we're just going to put this stuff here because it's probably better in your head than we could ever actually make it.
Right. That's exactly right. Like, there's several people point out all the time. Like there's a skeleton on the side of a glacier in Skyrim with holding a flag, and people are like, "What's going on there?" And the answer is whatever the fuck you want. You know, there's the giant woolly mammoth that's been nailed to the side of a glacier with spears, and everybody's like, "Holy crap, what happened here?" And the answer is, well, I don't know.
Where you find Luke Skywalker that's failed, he's
right.
Is that in Blood Moon? I think it was. It was like
it was in Blood Moon as well, I think. I know it was definitely in Blood Moon, but I think it was in Skyrim too. Mm-hmm. Oh well, it was of course it was in Blood Moon and it was in Solstheim in Skyrim, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Or was Solstheim in Morrowind? I thought.
Yeah, in both is what I'm saying. I think it was in both.
Sorry. I was checking. I was checking the Facebook selective chat.
Of course, in Skyrim, how you had the lady in the lake.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's one of them.
But I think the final thing because I know mine's more gameplay oriented than lore oriented because at this point I'm just like, Lord Schick, our savior, please give us all the dank lores. But the final thing I want to see is I want to see more puzzles. Like honestly, where hard puzzles, not puzzles like so in Oblivion had a few puzzles that she had to do. Some of them were crap. What's the name of the place where the really big stone is? The blue one. I forget.
Welkenstone?
Welkenstone, yeah. The main Welkenstone that's at the center of all the city-states.
Oh, shit. It's in the name of the quest.
Yeah, I know.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
I know. But anyway, yes, that's it. But
right.
So
sorry if I blew out your audio, listeners.
Or like for instance, in the Knights of the Nine, when you're doing the Julianos one and you had to do a bunch of puzzles to get to it, and it was actually really challenging. I remember it took me like a week to do it. Or in Morrowind, where in a certain quest you had to drown yourself that's what the riddle was, and you pretty much had to drown yourself, otherwise you couldn't continue.
Wasn't that in Vivek's Palace?
Yes. And you know what we got in Skyrim?
You walk on some tiles.
Yeah, you walk on some
you got the
tiles.
little rotating, doohickeys with the 3 symbols on them.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
which symbols are hidden all over the rooms everywhere. So
I think it says a lot that I forgot those existed until you said that, and I just finished playing Skyrim.
Yeah.
As
anyway,
far as puzzles being challenging goes.
The point is that Skyrim, there's like too much brute force involved. I feel like, there was no sit back, think about it, do it.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to think that these ancient tombs and things are not looted for a reason, because someone couldn't figure out how to get through them. It's not like they walk in there and go, oh, everyone in Tamriel is really an idiot because there's the,
It's on the wall, dumbasses.
Yeah, it's on the wall, literally.
Yeah, there was a puzzle in Oblivion in a Skyrim where you have to stand on a plate, and then these walls, these little nooks in the wall would have rotating, like a blinder or something, and eventually rotate around and show you the symbol.
Yeah.
And you had to stand on it and wait for them to rotate, like one by one, so that you could spot all 4 symbols that you needed. And all you have to do is just stand there and look.
Yeah.
There's actually write something down.
There's a book that tries to cover that a little bit. I forget the name of it, but it's where this one adventurer is talking to another who's on his deathbed, and he says that the point of the puzzles, at least in Nordic tombs, aren't to keep other people in
out.
Aren't to keep other people out. It's to keep the Draugr in.
Right.
Which makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't explain why it's like, all right, well, I'm this mercenary who's down on my luck. There's that tomb over there. I'm just going to go loot the shit out of that thing, because all I have to do is turn this rock so it looks like a whale.
Yeah, okay. You know what? That's a really good point, and I just want to bring up, if I want nothing else from the next Elder Scrolls game, if you can ignore, Todd Howard, I know you're watching these videos, because you're as big a lore nerd as everybody else is. I know this. You have nothing better to do. It's not like you're busy, okay? It's not like you run a business.
Yeah, not like you're the director of 2 major AAA game series or anything.
Right, you got plenty of time on your hands. Stop pretending. But if I want nothing else from the next Elder Scrolls game, it's when you go into a dark dungeon that's been closed for 1,000 years, don't put fucking lit torches in it.
Yeah.
That's from like 4 years before.
No, seriously. I want make light spells. I want torches. And I want
torches I can interact with.
Yeah.
And I want night eye spells to actually be useful. Again.
Is there even still night eye in Skyrim? I don't think there was.
Yeah.
For
the
Khajiit
get it.
The Khajiit and the vampires had it, and it was useless.
Okay, because I knew there were light spells.
It was useful, except in the Dawnguard dungeons, which were so dark it didn't matter.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, they'd black level you all to nothing.
Yeah.
You can
There should definitely be a sense of oldness. Like, my thing wasn't even the torches. Like, I grant that that's a thing, and that is kind of a internal consistency issue. But my thing is, if you're finding a book that was written by a character who is alive at this point, who is like a normal human, like, what's that cookbook that you can find in Skyrim? Apparently it's tied to like a Dark Brotherhood quest.
Gourmet.
Because the way loot is spawned, you'll sometimes find that book in tombs that supposedly haven't been touched in like 3,000 years. It's like, all right, somebody is having me on right now. It's either the guy who told me this was 5,000 years old or the gourmet.
A fucking liar. Yeah. That's it does yank you right out when you're I'm about to descend into an ancient tomb that's been sealed for 1,000 years, and apparently, really all you had to do was give the Draugr an animation where they're lighting torches.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, one of the reasons why you don't have torches all over Skyrim's dungeons that are dynamically lit is because dynamic lighting in Skyrim is more expensive than static lighting.
Yeah.
So there's actually a really good reason why those torches are lit, and that's because they had to have a lit torch there, and they couldn't turn it off because it would tank your. Well, it wouldn't tank your frame rate, but it would lower it just enough.
And it would take time and money on their part that could be better spent in other places.
Right, exactly.
It's like allocation of resources, you got to do it.
Or what would have been cool if the whole dungeon was just dark and you had to take a torch down in there.
Yeah, and you did it yourself.
And then you walk in, and then you hear some sounds, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of blue eyes down there, and you're like,
there was actually
fuck this, I'm out of here.
That exact moment is in Fable 3, and it's literally my favorite moment of the game.
Yeah.
That exact thing happens, and I'm like, all right, that was a lot more creepy than I expected out of a Fable game, but all right, let me roll with it. But yeah, no, that's definitely, like, if we're going on wish fulfillment, like, dungeons that feel old would definitely, be appreciated.
If they are designed to be old, that is.
Yeah, of course. Like,
that's true.
If it's somebody's palace that you're infiltrating for, like, a Dark Brotherhood thing, that's one thing. But if it's like some ancient tomb buried beneath the sands of Hammerfell, or like some Glimmer ruin under,
Oh, you know what? You know what else? Fuck it. I have one last one because I always have one last one. I want to see. Yes, but I'd also like to see non-lethal options.
Yes.
I want hand-to-hand to return. I just want you to knock the shit out of someone. I want you to take a blackjack, knock him out, hide him in a pot or some shit. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Just because when I'm a thief, I want to not be seen. I want to steal your shit. I don't want to kill you.
Right.
It hurts the role play.
Well,
I know it goes against the whole reach heaven through violence shit, but fuck you, Vivek. I do what I want.
Not everybody is trying to do the walking way. Some people just want to make a living.
Speaking of reach heaven by violence, the Sermon 16 just went up on the New Orleans School, where I talked specifically about that line. So that's up, and hopefully I'll remember to post on Reddit about that. But the non-lethal playthroughs haven't really been tremendously popular in most games. I assume because it's really goddamn hard to develop. I mean, like, just from if you don't kill them, then A, and if you do kill them, then B, and you have to code for both A and B, which makes sense when I think about it. But
hey, man, I did a pacifist challenge in Skyrim with using only illusion.
Really?
Wow.
How'd that go? How did you get anything done?
Okay, basically, in certain areas you are forced to kill, obviously, but you have to kill Alduin, you have to kill. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass. Basically, how it goes is that if we're doing it technically, you just can't have anything saying you killed so many things. It has to be zeros. So you use the rage, use restoration to make the Draugr kill each other or run away in fear and run into traps. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Wow.
So they can kill each other, but you can't kill them. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
You also
that
can't
sounds
use...
like a real son of a bitch. Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is a son of a bitch. So when I was low level and I was clearing the first, where you find the gold claw key, that took me like an hour and 30 minutes to clear. Something that takes 10 minutes maximum.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember the first time I did the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller.
Yeah.
In Skyrim, it took me an eternity to get through that dungeon because like the first time you go through Skyrim, you're looting absolutely everything.
Oh yeah.
And it took me forever to get through that dungeon. I just did it earlier today on a new character playthrough, and I just ran through the son of a bitch. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, because you know what's there.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's like, wasn't there a chest over here? Yes, there was. Okay, and that was, yeah. Oh, well, it's all old hat now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because we were talking about like how we play through the games earlier, and I'm like, my first playthroughs are nothing like what I described. Like, just to avoid spoilers on the internet, and I know it's a long game, so I get a bit of a buffer zone. But like, the first time like I put an Elder Scrolls game into my disk drive, it's just run through the main quest. Like, get through it just to get, like, the main quest plot and to just know, like, okay, what's the state of Tamriel at the end of this? And then after that, then I do all right, let's explore everything in this goddamn world now.
I'm the opposite of you.
Literally the opposite, yeah.
I spend a week running around Skyrim doing weird shit, and then I go, oh, yeah, there's that main quest thing.
Yeah. No, I just to avoid spoilers on the internet, because, I usually at least have it open, whether I'm doing something else or not. Like, I just have the tabs open, so just to avoid stumbling across something.
Yeah, that's a good question. What character classes, what kind of character playstyle did you use your first time through Oblivion?
My first time through Oblivion?
And why was it Stealth Archer?
And why was it Stealth Archer? It wasn't... I don't really remember my first character is the thing. because I would remake my characters all the time. But
Mhm.
I remember what my character class became. Basically, it was the assassin with our acrobatics removed, um, illusion added, and I'm under the Atronach, and I was a dark elf, a Dunmer, and that was my character class. And he was named Seth, and I did everything on that character.
Mine
that
is
was the. Yeah, go ahead.
first. Okay.
Yeah, you go. Go
All
ahead.
right. Mine, I actually remember because this was when I was like 15 years old. So I did some hidden fan fictions that still exist on the internet that kind of catalog this. They still exist, and I still get like notifications occasionally. But it was a tweaked kind of whatever the magic knight, like the magic warrior hybrid class was.
Battle Mage?
Huh?
Battle Mage? Or
I think
did
it
you
was
do
Battle.
Crusader?
I think it was a tweaked battle mage. Like I made my own class and just changed it so that I could I added in one skill and removed another to make him level faster.
Yeah.
And he was an imperial vampire, and just powered through it, did the main quest. But yeah, it was just kind of a warrior because I feel like that's the faster one, and that's the way I do my first playthrough is kind of the go kind of quickly through the main quest style of thing.
Yeah, my first character in Oblivion was Celis Marcus Octavius Draconis, whose name did not fit.
I would imagine not.
So that had to be Marcus Octavius, and Paladin, which was my character. I played a Paladin in Morrowind as well. Basically, a type of battle mage. I did not find magic to be terribly useful in Oblivion as far as destruction magic. Everything else was awesome. Like alteration, forget about it, everybody. But destruction, like to do a pure mage in robes with destruction in Oblivion, not a chance.
Nope.
Yeah. Destruction was really underwhelming.
It was really underwhelming.
I had it on my skill list. I think I used it in the opening dungeon and never again.
That was it. Yep, me too. Me too. Though the guy I ended up playing the most was a Dunmer vampire, kind of assassin-ish kind of character. Stealth melee. I never got into stealth archery. I never got into it.
Stealth melee was hard.
It was hard, but fantastic. Used a lot of illusion.
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah. I ended up, the last character I played in Oblivion ended up with 140% chameleon.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you do the glitch where you had all the chameleon on all your parts, so you just ran around like a ghost poking people?
Yep. Yeah, you just hit people and you would go into combat and they'd be like, oh my god, and they'd pull out their sword and then run anywhere. Like a chicken with their head cut off. Just, and then,
I might have
then
done
put their
that.
sword up. Oh well, must have been my imagination. Put that sword up.
Yeah. I did find that the Xbox 360 got grumpy if you did like 140% chameleon, and it after a while it would just crash. So I couldn't really do that.
Yeah.
I will say that the funniest moments of any Elder Scrolls game do come from Stealth Archer, because it is the dudes with the arrow sticking out of their goddamn nose, going, must have been the wind.
Oh well.
Walks away.
It's so true.
I gotta cut back on the scope.
Sticking out the back of his head. Imagine, you have a high-powered bow in Skyrim, and you shoot somebody in the face, it is sticking out the back of their head. And they're like, must have been the wind. I'm just gonna go back to walking in my circle.
That's right. That was awesome.
It's so good.
That was the other thing about Skyrim that made me eventually, the first character I played in Skyrim turned into a stealth archer, as we always do. We always cave and just go, fuck this shit. And just turn him into a stealth archer.
Even if I play a warrior, I'll do some dungeons as a stealth archer when I'm at a high level just to fuck around and have fun.
Hey,
Well,
guys,
that's the thing about, but the problem with Skyrim was that they would do like dialogue with like the bad guys, where you'd be stealthing through a dungeon and you'd hear lines about, sometimes it was plot related, and if I was just running through Sword and boarding it, I missed that shit, and I didn't want to miss it. Yeah.
Or even if it was just moments of
so retardedly OP.
that dwarven crossbow, man. I mean, I don't care what you would be like, oh boy, it's a storm atronach or something, and you're like, click, no worries. It's just awesome.
How about chunk? Okay, that's the end of that. Problem solved. Problem solved. Yeah, I was not at all surprised to discover that Fallout 4, lo and behold, turned into oh look, I've got a sniper rifle and it's silenced and I'm a stealth archer all over again.
I've only played Fallout 4 when I was at my family's house for Christmas because my younger brother has it. It's literally the only thing I did. I just walked around, looked for places I knew in real life because I'm from Boston, and I'm like, wow, this is really tiny. Compared to the real version.
It is. It is. You go to a town that's like 3 buildings.
I understand the limitations of it, but I'm like, wow, it took me 2 minutes to get from Fenway to Alston. That takes a lot longer in real life. And then I would just go around sniping people because it's fun as shit.
Hey, I played a high intelligence, high strength power armor build. I walked around beating the shit out of everyone with a sword.
That's literally my next playthrough for Fallout 4 is going to be high intelligence melee.
Nice.
And it's because science is ridiculous in Fallout 4. But that's kind of like, I mean, the scale thing is a problem, but I mean, you know, if you took a Nord and showed him Skyrim, he'd be like, Whiterun is not that small.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's only a model is the
it's only a model
that would go around. I think it was Daria who said it a lot back in the day of when I actually used forums for stuff instead of just Facebook. I think she was the first person I saw saying that straight up, of just like the scale where like the Imperial City is like more like DC or New York or
it's gigantic.
Vatican or something like that, just in terms of like how the characters would see it. But like obviously, there's only so many resources you can put into a game.
There was an Oblivion mod that tried to expand the size of the Imperial City, and I remember reading the patch notes on it, and they said, you know, finish the vanilla campaign before you do this because pathing is buggy. And I had not finished the vanilla campaign, so I loaded it up, and most of the time I had to follow somebody. They ended up walking into a wall and just with their head up against that wall, just like, I'll make it through eventually. Quantum mechanics says it's statistically probable that I can pass through this thing. And but whatever.
It's like, I think somebody said it the way that I kind of tend to think of it is if you scaled it up so that it would be, for lack of a better word, accurate to what it would actually be, the entire map of Oblivion and then some would be filled with just the Imperial City. If it was to scale.
It would take forever to get from one place to another, and it would be fucking dull. Because there'd be nothing. There'd be nothing between one place and another. It'd be like walking around in Daggerfall. It'd be shit dull. There's like trees and mobs and nothing else.
If it was the whole game. But that was the whole thing.
You know, I'd like to see Bethesda bring back Elder Scrolls Adventure games, and I'd like to see one set only in the Imperial City.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking of going next with that, where it's like,
that would be
if
good,
it was like in detail, just the city, that would be pretty cool.
And make it super massive. You know, you have the Alien Elysian era, you have the Rayman era, you'd have the Septim era, and so.
Well, think of like really old European cities. It's like. You have that, like, that's a real thing. Like, they could look at real cities for inspiration for how to do that, where it's like, oh, in real life, you have, like, Rome. You have these, like, thousands-of-year-old ruins, and then you have these hundreds-of-year-old ruins, and then you have, you know, modern buildings, and it's all sort of smashed together in a certain amount of space. And it's like, that makes for a really cool look.
Yeah, definitely.
Ziegler, you've played ESO way the hell more than I have. Have you made it to the Imperial City yet?
I did. I just got the DLC this weekend.
How is it? Size-wise, I mean.
Well, I don't know because I die every 3.5 minutes and then give up. And
you know, it's not size though, really. it's how you make use of it and how good you are.
What I've been able to get to, I really like. It's amazing, and you know, the few characters that I've talked to are really interesting, and it sounds like it's going to have a lot of cool plots. But you can't go more than about 50 feet and die. Everything I run into is leveled like 16 levels higher than me, and I'm like, come on.
Oh, is it PvP or is it just?
It's both PvP and PvE, but
Okay.
it just think of it as it's just like Cyrodiil. It's basically it's mostly PvP.
Okay. But so you mean when everything's higher level than you talk about mobs or other players?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm what am I? I'm 2nd level veteran, and I'm running up against 16th level veteran Dremora. And then like 3 or 4 of them, and they're like, "Oh, look, a human. Let's kill it." Or actually, a Khajiit in this case.
Let's rape it.
I understand. Yeah, I understand the Thieves Guild DLC is level agnostic. You can play it at any level. It is very appealing.
Does it scale, or does it just say "fuck you"?
No, it apparently the missions that you do for like you do a lot of dailies, but they're like thievery missions. Apparently it's supposed to be like the idea is that you're sneaking around stealing from people, so it's not really level dependent in that respect.
So it's like you're actually like doing Thieves Guild stuff instead of these big like conspiracy things.
Imagine that!
Right? That's a shock.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really quite a thing, and I really need to get around to playing it.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it. I've been building up a thief character, and you never level up for anything. And the only way to level up in ESO is to do quests, and that frustrates me deeply. But having the dailies, I think that'll hopefully change that.
Hopefully, yeah. I'd say, if anything, that's my biggest criticism of ESO is that it's an online role-playing game. It's an MMO. If it wasn't an MMO, I'd fucking adore it. It'd be amazing,
Well, that's the thing. Probably, it's like, I get that with a couple games. It's like, first off, like I said, I don't actually have the hardware to play ESO at the moment. Or the Old Republic, now that I think about it. But both of those games, it's like kind of the big reason that I was so standoffish when they first came out was the MMO thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to admit, this weekend I've been playing with a new guild, and they're Aldmeri Dominion, and they just run around and wreck the map. And it's fantastic. We got 20 people who know what they're doing, and we just slaughter everything, and it is glorious to be a part of.
Oh, is this a PvP guild?
It's a PvP guild, and it is super fun. But
what platform are you on?
PS4.
That might not matter.
I got that.
Too much longer.
Hey, I got that.
Cool, man.
I should probably make a character.
Let's do it.
I was seeing some stories that crossplay might be a thing in the near future.
So let it be. So let it be.
Yeah, indeed.
If it is, because like I'm normally an Xbox guy, so if it is, I'll probably eventually get an Xbox. When they announce Elder Scrolls 6, there's going to be an Xbox One in my home. But at the same time, though, it's like...
You think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to come out in time for the Xbox One?
It might be at the tail end, but I think it'll do it.
I think so. I hope.
If it does, though, it will be very close to the end. It might be like just under the wire. But we'll see. I might skip a generation. Like I've done it with. I used to play Nintendo stuff a lot, but I haven't touched a Wii U for more than maybe 20 minutes collectively.
Wow.
So I might like if the new Zelda comes out on the new one, whatever that is, then there's a fair chance that I'll just straight up skip the Wii U if I get that one at all. But if Elder Scrolls 6 skips Xbox One, then there's a fair chance I will too.
Any of you guys play Witcher 3?
No, but I want to. It's on my backlog.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Witcher 3
sorry, I haven't played much of it.
No, it's fine. Witcher 3 was the best game I played of 2015.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've heard it's tired of winning things.
I would like Bethesda to learn from them. I just like them to learn from them. It'd be nice.
Well, Witcher 3 is not in the same competition as Elder Scrolls. Yeah, they make way more money than The Witcher did.
Yeah, but I would like them to learn from them far as story and like the way the world felt. I mean, you really felt like you were in a time of war and authoritarian dictators and underhanded mean people, and everything is gray. There's no good or evil, only choice and consequence, and I really liked that.
I feel like that was in Morrowind a lot, or to a degree anyway, too, so it's definitely not wholly unfamiliar territory to Bethesda.
Well, yeah.
For sure.
but I'd like to see it again.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see more of that too.
It fits
Like
in
that
with the-
gray stuff is beautiful.
It fits in with the gray maybe ideology, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I don't. I understand that Marin's Dagon is a big bad. In Oblivion, and gotta stop the Daedric invasion. Gotta stop the Daedric invasion again. ESO, cause Molag Bal is gonna put chains on everything. but
Bondage.
at least Oblivion had Mankar Cameron.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the thing too. It's all from a mortal perspective, though. Like if you want to, maybe it's a little bit of post hoc reasoning, but it's like, if you are a human living in Tamriel, you probably don't want, everything destroyed. So even if it's to what could be considered a higher purpose, it's still got that gray of like, well, from me as the perspective of, whatever dude, human living in Cyrodiil, maybe I'm not cool with this idea of destroying the world to build something better, because I kind of live here.
Right.
I know,
Yeah.
but
It's
just
where I keep all my stuff.
Yes.
I got this sick-ass sword. It's Daedric. I enchanted the shit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just a trope that's been revisited 3 times now, with Battlespire, Oblivion, and then now ESO.
Yeah, and then semi-recycled even in Skyrim, except with dragons instead of Daedra. Just put scales on them. It's like, the whole outside threat thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I understand that it's kind of an epic fantasy staple, and
Trope, yeah.
it makes sense to use it. But at the same time, it's like if you use it for every installment, it's like, all right, guys, if you face a literal world-ending catastrophe every couple decades, that might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, I definitely would like the idea, since, kind of filtering back to the wishful thinking for the next game, if it was more like Thalmor versus Empire stuff. Which is another reason I want it in Hammerfell, because they're technically a neutral party.
Oh no, Hammerfell's not neutral to the All-Merry Dominion. You can tell yourself that.
That's the thing. They're not neutral realistically, but they're not like legally a part of the Empire or the Dominion. And I'm like, okay, you could have so many opportunities for political storytelling of each side kind of wrangling and, your character being the deciding factor.
It's called their returning to the roots of Cyrus and raiding all the shit from everywhere.
Yeah, it's like, where's the money in that kind of
Right,
shit.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, I have to say, to be able to play sides in in the Thalmor War. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to join if you will, quote unquote, join the bad guy. I want so like in Morrowind, how there were so many different factions, and certain factions hated other factions. Your disposition would go up and down depending on who you're with, even though it didn't really matter, but it did.
I love that too.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I'd like to see that again, and I'd like to see multiple different endings depending on who you side with, if you will. And then just leave the outcome kind of like, now you got to think about it after the ending.
Yeah. There's definitely
less shit again. I want to see it.
Yeah. I've mapped out like my entire ideal of the next several games, and I'm not under the illusions that it'll follow that
Yeah.
or anything, but it's definitely like I would love for either Hammerfell, Elsewhere, and then Somerset Isles and Valenwood, or if that's too much to hope for, Hammerfell and just the whole Dominion.
Yeah.
And then like wrap that Thalmor plot line there for a couple installments and come up with something else. But again, this is just like kind of wishful thinking, since this is a very nostalgia-heavy podcast. May as well move forward as well, right?
Yep.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. It's a nostalgia-heavy podcast. Well, we've been going for an hour and a half about roughly Oblivion. So
more or less.
Roughly, yeah.
I
don't know if we have a set date for the next podcast.
We do not.
We are kind of running out of steam here. We've hit all the really big stuff, and until we start getting into the really, really boring parts of obscure lore, like
spaceships.
Ethereal spectrography. Well, that might be nice to do an Oblivion cast in the respect that we talk about Oblivion, like space stuff. But
Yeah.
I might try to see if I could figure out a way to explain dimensional relationships in the Elder Scrolls and the way Mundus is inside of Oblivion is inside of Aetherius.
You and I should definitely talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that like I can understand it in my head, but I can't put it out of my mouth in any kind of reasonably coherent way.
Speaking of You and I Should X, a few episodes ago, I think we mentioned that we had to bookmark like, are the Thalmor right or not?
Ooh.
And that one. Because I'm on the side of not necessarily.
Yes,
and I thought that would be fun. And then just before this podcast, we were talking about our alleged Dagoth Ur podcast.
Yeah, which we keep sidling up to, but never actually do. Yeah.
Yep.
But I feel like energy for these will probably, like our energy for doing these will probably go up the closer we get to a new, like, numbered entry in the series.
Really?
I would imagine.
Okay.
Like I'll do these whenever. I don't care if I'm available. I'll do them. But like I feel like people are busy and stuff happens.
Well, if that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a very long time until you hear from us again.
Yeah. Right now, we could find a bunch of people with certain worldviews and have us argue it in a Socratic.
I like the idea of doing a Socratic method kind of thing. I like the idea of doing like the Thalmor did nothing wrong cast.
That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but in that respect, before this conversation dissolves any further, I'm just going to call it here. So we'll see you people like later. Whatever.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly later.
Sometime in the future.
Take care, friends.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.